Hi everyone, it's Brooke Özlemirol again. So it's been a while since I haven't seen you, but I have an amazing guest with me today. I'm always talking about like our individual purpose, our organization's purpose, and how when they align, there is magic happens in that intersection. So I have a great friend actually I met years and years ago because of a friend I have in Turkey actually, Farah. And I got to meet him first in person, I think in Phoenix at Work Human event, where I got a signed copy of his book called Leading with Happiness book. And I know you have another book, Happy Hour is 9 to 5, which I love the title. And then I met him last in San Diego, but more, I want him to introduce himself. Hi, Alex. So good to see you in front
Hi.
of me in my screen. Hopefully to see you in person soon. But why don't you introduce
Yes.
us and thank you for being here.
Hey, my absolute pleasure. Great to see your smiling face again. Yeah, I remember that event, the Work Human conference. That was amazing. They had me signing books at the same time as Simon Sinek,
Yes, I
and there were
remember.
like 3 people in line for me and 300 in line for Simon Sinek. So I tweeted out, if anybody's in line for Simon Sinek and the line is too long, bring his books over to me. I can sign his name just as well.
I
Nobody
love
did that. It was so strange. Yeah.
that.
I'm Alexander Kjerulf. I'm right here sitting in my home in Copenhagen, Denmark. And my journey for the last 20 years has been with a focus on happiness at work. I believe that this may be controversial, but I truly believe that work should not suck.
Yeah.
Uh, it's a weird thought, I know. But think about it, right? We've constructed societies where work is not optional. There's unless you are born to filthy rich parents, you will have to do some form of work. So, in my opinion, given that you're going to have to do it, and in all likelihood you're going to spend a large part of your life working, I believe that work should be something that you actually enjoy. This is absolutely possible. And it's not only possible; it's a really good idea. It's a good idea for the individual. We know that when people hate their jobs, they're more stressed, more likely to get sick, more likely to die from heart disease or strokes. It affects every area of their personal lives if they're unhappy at work. And we also know that unhappy workplaces suffer. Their productivity is lower, their innovation is lower, absenteeism is higher, turnover rates are higher. So it's just a good idea. It seems like a no-brainer, right? It's companies are still struggling with this. It's definitely gaining attention. When I started doing this 20 years ago, it was way weirder, but things are looking up, and that's amazing.
Yeah, and I love that you were that brave person. That's why I love talking to people like you on this series because you are one of the pioneers. When people, like you said, it's a great idea, but it was a weird idea for sure. And
That's
people
true.
just, I think we accept it as like the Western society, especially that work should be suffering. I mean, you will only work for only a paycheck, which I never got to be able to do it anyways because I did not feel like we can hate or dislike 5 days out of 7 waiting for the weekend, right? So yeah, I get
I could personally never do it. I refuse to do work that I don't enjoy. I mean, it's not like every second of every workday has to be ecstasy, right? That's not what we're talking about. But in general, work should be good. You should look forward to coming to work most days. You should, come home from work most days thinking, you know what, I kind of want to go back in tomorrow.
yeah.
Otherwise, there's something wrong.
So true, so true. And I learned a lot from you by being in one of your conferences in San Diego too, because you make really good distinctions between job satisfaction and what I call job fulfillment. Yes, you can give the free coffee. Yes, you can have this wonderful gym at the workplace, but those
Hmm.
are all external stuff, and people really need more fulfillment with the intrinsic and internals like emotions, right? So you are a great example of that too. So let me ask you that. Like, first of all, I see you since I've known you for years now. I see you like if I look, work from, because I always use purpose, but if I look from that perspective, it feels like you have dedicated your life to make people more happy around the world with all your work. What
Yeah.
would you say your purpose is? Like, not to be fancy, or I always feel like people feel a lot of pressure to put a good statement on. It doesn't mean that, but how do you see it? This is all my perception.
Yeah, no, I thought about this obviously, and the purpose that I came up with for my company is that we want to make happiness at work the rule and not the exception. We're not there yet, but I think that's the way that we came up with to formulate it. And then, of course, you can talk specifically about how you do it. But I think that would be a nice world to live in, right? A
Yes.
world where, as a general rule, people actually enjoy what they do.
Yeah, oh my God, of course. And you made it so, like, that's why it could be such a simple sentence, but it is so powerful. Yes, it is not the exception, you really. And I think, like you said, we're getting there, especially like I've been working on purpose for 20 years too. And the time that I started this to this day, we have so many more conversation, which really makes me happy too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you were going to say something, I guess.
Well, and then, of course, I mean, a large part of our work is also helping companies find out what their purpose is. Because if you wanna create a happy workplace, I think a huge part of that is giving people meaningful work. And meaningful work is not just working towards increasing productivity 1.8% in the next fiscal quarter, or increasing revenues or profits or whatever. Those are all nice, and there's nothing wrong with that. But that's not going to inspire anybody.
Yes.
I participated. I was at a conference for a Danish company, and the CEO launched their big vision for next year. We're going to increase profits by 1.2%, and there was no reaction because people didn't really care. So a huge part of creating a happy organization is having that purpose, knowing that my work in
Yes.
some way makes the world a little bit better for somebody. And most workplaces do that. I don't care if it's a hospital, you're curing sick people, right? If you're a bus driver, you're taking people to work every day, or school, wherever. That's important. Most workplaces have that. It's just that very few workplaces are good at highlighting that purpose for their employees and showing them, hey, listen, you guys make a difference. You contribute towards this purpose. Here's how you do it. Here's why it matters. That conversation is crucial.
Yes, so well said. And like you said, it is already there for many organizations, but then people don't know it. They don't tie what they do on a daily basis to the bigger contribution they make. And there's like a disconnect there. When you make that connection and articulate it well, then people have something more to look forward to coming to work, right? Yeah, you said it so well. Yeah.
There's a huge amount of communication in workplaces on what we're doing and very little on why we're doing it.
Yeah, true, very true. So, like, I know you're from Denmark. You're living
Mm-hmm.
staying in one of the best cities, most beautiful cities I have visited. And Denmark usually is in the news like, okay, it's one of the happiest countries. People are happier than what we see in the United States or other Western countries, maybe. Do you see that, since you have done work around the world, you have done the workshops everywhere, you have seen a lot of people and talking about happiness? Do you see a difference in your country versus others, or do you see the same thing most of the time?
No, there are definitely some things that we got right in Denmark, and other similar countries. And it's not, it's not a big puzzle, right? It's not a big mystery. It's a well-functioning society. It's free healthcare. It's free universities, so that everybody who has the desire and the skills for it can actually get a free university level education. That's why I have a university degree, because I'm not from a rich family. If I'd been American, my family could not have afforded that, right? So we have a safe, stable, prospering society without huge differences between the very rich and the very poor. We have societies with a very high level of trust. So people feel like they can trust each other, they can trust random strangers on the street, they can trust the police, they can trust government institutions. It's not a big mystery. I'm not. I want to make it very clear. I'm not saying Denmark is paradise and there are no flaws. It's not a perfect society, but there are just some things that we lucked into and got right over the last 100 years that contribute to making this a really good society. Yeah. No, I'm very happy to be Danish. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what, like you said, like I'm from Turkey, but I've been to Europe a lot. And then I lived here for 23 years. But even like some of the employee rights and like even the like paid time off and what you can do with your free time, and a lot of stuff is already ingrained in the work system in Europe. So when
Yes.
I look at some purpose work, I see a lot of European countries, UK, and some others are more advanced where we are, I think. But that's my personal opinion. Please don't yell at me for saying this. But then I know, because I've been there and I worked there for a long time, I know some of them are already ingrained in the system. So it's better and easier to build up on that than versus starting from scratch, is how it seems to me.
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
So
Uh-huh.
there's that, and then what we also have in Denmark is that we have an attitude towards work, which is
Mhm.
that work is fine and you want to enjoy it and you want to do good work, but you also don't want to kill yourself working.
Yes,
In
yes.
fact, Denmark has the lowest average annual working hours of any OECD country. So
Wow.
yeah, the average last time I checked, it was 1,350 hours. In the US, it's 1,600. And in I think the top score was Mexico, where it's 2,200 hours, 2,200 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so we work less, but interestingly, Danish workers have the highest productivity.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. It
Yeah,
doesn't mean you're not productive. That's so true. No, it's
exactly.
interesting. It's fascinating to look at those differences. And but like hopefully we learn from each other. We're a smaller world right now, and we want to see that we can all learn from each other. And I think there's more openness to that, is at least how I see it. So we'll see.
Definitely.
So tell us about, like, I loved your, I think you're one of the first people I met with a title Chief Happiness Officer
Yeah.
in your company. And I know you started a new one. Can you tell us the one that I have known for a while where you had that title, and the
Sure.
new company, which I love the name and the title, but I'm not going to blow it. So please, you share it with us and my audience.
Sure. So way back, I've been doing this work for a couple of years, and I came up with the title chief, or I thought I came up with the title Chief Happiness Officer.
Mhm.
And it's everything that really matters inside an organization has somebody in charge of it, right? So the money matters, so you have a CFO, right? The technology matters, so you have a CTO. Operations matters, so you have a COO. And I was like, happiness matters, so there should be a Chief Happiness Officer. So I started using the title. And after 6 months, I was like, I wonder if anybody else is using this. I should probably Google it. And I do. And I found out there was one Chief Happiness Officer before me, and that was Ronald McDonald.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yes, the clown
Wow.
from McDonald's. His official title back then, he changed since, but his official title before me was Chief Happiness Officer of the McDonald's Corporation. And you know what I thought? I was like, okay, I'm gonna keep on using it. They can sue me if they want, and they still haven't, so that's fine. So that's the idea, and it's really gained traction. And many organizations now, they might not have an appointed Chief Happiness Officer with that title, but somebody inside the organization is in charge of making sure that people are actually happy at work, and I think that's phenomenal.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then my newest venture is an HR tech startup called Heart Count.
I
That's
love
heart
that.
as in the muscle, not hard as in difficult. Heart Count, and it's a tool for measuring happiness at work. And in my opinion, but I mean, I would say that, right? But I think it's the best damn tool for measuring happiness at work. Because and the idea for it came out of my frustration with the usual annual job satisfaction surveys, right? which every workplace has to feel like they have to do. And then once a year, you get this survey with 50 or 75 or 100 questions, and nobody wants to do them. And HR keeps sending reminder emails, please fill out the survey, please fill out the survey. And then you fill it out maybe, and then maybe 3 or 4 months later, you actually see the data for your team, and then you have to follow it. I mean, it's pointless in many cases. In many cases, it's worse than pointless, because what I've seen is that it creates an expectation in employees that things will get better, that somebody will act on this data and then nothing happens. And that leads to a huge amount of frustration. So I was like, there should be a better way. So that's what we came up with. Do you want to hear how it works?
Yes,
just very
yes,
briefly.
please,
Okay,
please.
it's super simple. So instead of 100 questions once a year, it works like this. Every Friday, all of the employees get an email with 3 questions, just 3 questions. And you don't need to log in anywhere. You can actually reply to the questions directly in the email, like click, 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 submit, boom, you're done, delete the email, that's it. The first question is always the same, which is, how was your week? How did you feel at work this week? Scale of 1 to 5. Mm-hmm. And then the other 2 questions change every week. There's a bank of questions that have been tested by psychologists and vetted by statisticians. So we can ask about, how did you feel about your coworkers? How did you feel about your boss? Have you had time to do your tasks? Have you felt proud of the work you did? Has your work been meaningful this week, for instance, is a question. So this means that the company gets weekly data on how their employees are feeling. So if there is a problem right now, you can handle it right now, instead of in 6 months when we run the next job satisfaction survey. And the crucial thing is also, I'm not going to give a whole sales talk, but the crucial thing is also that all of these questions are directly related to happiness at work, not satisfaction in the workplace.
Yes.
So these are all things that actually matter for how people feel about their jobs. Yes, and the name Heart Count, I came up with that. I'm not usually good with names, but I came up with that, and I'm very proud of it. And it comes from, it's a play on head count.
Yes.
Because every organization knows their head count is how many people are in the workplace. Do you know where that word comes from?
Yeah, cows, I think, right?
Cows, cattle, exactly.
Yes.
A cattle rancher will talk about how many heads of cattle she owns, right? That's her head count. That's where the term comes from, and we use it for people. I don't think that's bad. So the way we put it is that your head count is how many people you have in your organization, and your heart count is how many of them actually want to be there.
Oh my God, that's wonderful. It's
genius.
Thank you. That's why I loved it. First of all, anything with a heart in it, even my friends would know. My house is full of hearts, the real hearts. But also, like, I love it because that's one of the terms I refuse to use too, the head count, because I heard the story of where it comes from, and it's like, no, we're not herding the cattle or anything. It's just people. But I love the distinction you made. Say that again. It's not the people who are
head
just
count is
people. Tell us what the heart count is again, because that was...
So head count is how many people are in your workplace, and your heart count is how many of them actually want to be there.
Yes, want to be there by their own will, not hating their Monday. So I love that. I love that. So it's such a good continuation of what you already built up so far. And tell us the name of the company that you still have. That's a beautiful name too.
Oh yeah, it's called Woo.
Yes, that's wonderful. It so goes with you and personality, because I feel like some people bring who they are, what is so meaningful to them, what matters to them the most, and don't live it like maybe in retirement or weekend, but you bring it to your whole work. And that's what we want, right? The more and more people really embrace what you said at the very beginning. Okay, the work does not need to be suffering. It doesn't need to suck all the time. And like you and I know, I always quote him a lot, WD-40, Gary Rich. God bless his heart. I love him to death, really. He would say, he even got a domain, CEOs that suck or something.
Soul-sucking CEOs.
Soul-sucking CEOs, exactly. Yeah. So there is unfortunately too many of them, but we want to eliminate as many as possible. So that's why you're an great example. So a little bit heavier stuff, but I still have to ask, because it's all at top of our heads and minds right now. with what happened with the pandemic, and unfortunately there's some like crazy things happening in the world with the war and everything.
Oh yeah.
What do you see the future like? Do you see like your work is getting to be more recognized, people are more open to it? How did pandemic make an influence and impact on people? And maybe say a few words or not about all the conflict that's going on right now, but it's top of my mind too.
Sure. So here's my honest belief is that the world keeps getting better. And this goes for all aspects of the world, you know, our private lives, our countries, our workplaces. It keeps getting better. And this is not, it's not that it gets better from day to day, but in the long run, things do improve. And when bad things happen, like for instance, the COVID pandemic, that's bad, and I'm not trivializing the impact of that at all. I mean, the lives lost, the people with long-term suffering consequences from COVID, people who have lost loved ones. I'm not trivializing that at all. But what very often happens is that something bad like this will happen, and then we learn from it, and we use that learning to improve some things. And that's what happened. That's what's happened in workplaces. Suddenly, a lot of stuff that was impossible before is now absolutely possible, like people working from home, like teleconferences instead of physical conferences, like you know, having a meeting over Zoom instead of in person, you know, flying 2 hours for a 1 hour meeting and then flying 2 hours back, right? A lot of that stuff has been reduced, and I think that's great. And I mean, a lot of people talk about the Great Resignation, which I think is phenomenal. I think it's so great when people quit their jobs if they're not happy. And I think COVID has pushed that, because a lot of people have had an opportunity now that the status quo got disrupted, now that everything got shook up. It gave people a chance to think and figure out, you know, is there a better way for me to work? Is there a better way for me to live? Is there a better way for me to make a difference in society? And a lot of people have acted on that and quit their jobs and gone to do something else. And I think that's phenomenal. So again, without trivializing the bad stuff, it very, very often the bad stuff leads to good stuff down the road. And I'm pretty sure that's exactly what's going to happen after Ukraine. I think it's terrible what's going on there. I think Putin is a war criminal and needs to be, you know, face a war tribunal in Geneva. I think that would be amazing. It's not going to happen, but I think it would be amazing. But look at the consequences. Just today, Germany announced that they're pushing up the date of when they want to be 100% using renewable energy.
Yeah.
Right.
True.
That's a positive outcome right there. I have no idea. Nobody knows what the status will be in Ukraine, but you know, much of the rest of the world has now been united against this kind of behavior. And we, you know, and we'll do whatever it takes to stop that kind of thing in the future. Yeah. And this is not me making this up. If anybody's interested in this topic, there is a phenomenal book called Non-Zero by Robert Wright. Have you read it?
No, I'm making a note immediately.
Yes. It's fantastic, and it makes the case that the world is the world's not a zero-sum game. That's why the title is Non-Zero, right? It's possible if we're in the world together. Yes. I don't need to win. I don't need to lose in order for you to win. We can win together. And in fact, that over time, the people, the organizations, the groups, or the countries who can figure out how to collaborate have an evolutionary advantage over those who can only compete.
So true.
And the first half of so exactly right. And it's a very, very thoroughly researched piece of work. The first half of the book is about this trend in biology. And the second half is about this trend in society. And he actually makes the argument that two of the main drivers towards higher and higher levels of collaboration have been technology and war.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, the classic example is, of course, we had World War II, and out of World War II came the United Nations,
Mm-hmm.
which again, collaboration on a very high level. So
Yes.
that's how I see it. That's what gives me hope.
Yes.
That's what makes me believe that that the world is overall getting better, and it is getting better. And I'll just one more thing, and then I'll shut up. The Swedish statistician Hans Rosling. Have you seen him?
Yes. Uh-huh. Yes.
Yeah, he has a
Yes.
fantastic TED
Yes.
talk, and he wrote a book
Yes.
called
Yes.
Factfulness,
Uh-huh.
which is about all the ways in which the world's getting better.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So, for
Yeah.
instance, I have a quiz. I'll test your knowledge.
Uh-huh.
The number of people who die due to natural disasters since the 1980s, from the 1980s to today, what do you think has happened with that number?
Well, if you look at the news, it feels like it's more, but obviously it's less, right?
Exactly. It has been cut in half.
Yes. Wow.
Only half as many people die every year on average from
Yes.
natural disasters now compared to the 1980s. My favorite example, just one example, because
Yeah.
this is not in the news.
Uh-huh.
Guinea worm
Uh-huh.
is a terrible disease. It's a parasite. It lives in a larval state in water. If you go into that water, it'll drill in through your skin, and then it'll
Mhm.
grow into a long worm inside your body.
Mhm.
At one point, it'll poke out through the skin. That hurts and it itches, so you go down to water, and then it can spread back into that water.
Mhm.
By the way, the only way to get there is no cure, there is no
Mhm.
medicine, there's no vaccine, no preventative treatment. The only way to get it out once you have it is to actually pull it out of your skin, which is intensely
Wow.
painful. Yeah. So in the 1980s in Africa, there were millions of cases of guinea worm every single year.
Uh-huh.
But through a concerted effort, a huge international project in changing people's behaviors, last year in all of Africa, there were 14 cases of guinea worm.
Wow. Wow. Look at that. Yes. And these do
And
not make it into news. That's the problem.
that's the thing, right?
You have to dig in and be a big scholar like you, read a lot and dig in to find the good news, because they don't make it to the real news, unfortunately. But I'm with you.
Exactly.
I'm with you. Definitely.
Exactly. And this
Yeah.
is not, again, I think it's very important. This is not to trivialize the
Of course.
problems that are still in the world and the suffering
Of
that's still
course.
going on. And what's happening in Ukraine right now is awful.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
but this is what gives me hope, that
Yes.
that
Yes.
ultimately all of this will leave us in a better place.
Yes. And that's why I love my circle of friends like you and people on LinkedIn who I never met even in person in my real life, but they all give me hope, because everybody can see the positive. They dig in and they research, they find out. And there's one more book. I'm trying to remember the name of the book, which escaped me, but Steve Pinker has a great book too, which
Better
talks
angels
about.
of our nature.
Yes, I think so. So he gives all the different things,
Yeah,
from crime rates to like disease and everything, how everything got better. But
I can see it
you
on my
can see
bookshelf
it
right
there.
there.
Okay, okay, good. Yes. So when you read a book like that, or the ones that you mentioned, you know things are getting so much better. But it's not because we have the social media or the news only highlighting the bad ones that spreads like crazy.
Yeah.
These do not get to be the news, and we feel like everything is getting worse.
And yes, exactly. And I think a very important point here to make is also that things don't get better on their own. Things
Yes.
get better because some people
Yes.
sit down and say, I'm going to fix this problem. I'm going
Yes.
to make the world better somehow, and have that purpose.
Yes.
And those people are amazing. Those
Yes.
people who
I
take up a
agree.
cause and say, I can make a difference.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's how it happens. It's not something that happens automatically on its own. It's because we do it
Yes.
with
Yes.
some kind of positive purpose in mind.
Definitely. And I am a big believer, coming back to what you said about oneness and collaboration. I'm a big believer in collective intelligence with what everything happening in the world, just even the pandemic itself. No country can solve it on their own, right? All the scientists come together. They just find the solution much earlier, faster. And it's true for every problem we face now. The climate change will never go away with just one country work on it, one government or one institution work work on it. Every one of us has to do something. So we have to know and remember that we are all one in this little beautiful planet. And I always think that like planet does not really need us. We need the planet. So we should be more respectful of our resources given to us, right? So yeah, I agree. Thank you, Alex. Like, do you have any parting thoughts, anything that I didn't ask you, but you want to people to know about happiness at work, finding more fulfillment at work, anything that the individuals or the organizations can take from you as the last lesson? Because you already shared a lot of great gems, obviously, but any thoughts?
I think I'll come back to the one thing that we always, where we start is that that your happiness at work matters. Having a job you actually enjoy is something you should focus on. It's something you should value and something you should strive to have. It's not a luxury. It's absolutely possible, but a lot of people don't know that, and a lot of people are stuck in jobs that suck and just accept that because their mindset is that, well, that's just the way it is. Everybody hates their jobs. But that's absolutely not true. It is absolutely possible to find a job you love. And with the great resignation going on right now, there are and unemployment rates being incredibly low in many countries, there has never been a better time to get the hell out of that job you hate and find a better one. Yes. If that's where you want to go. I actually have on my YouTube channel, I wanted to make a video about quitting your job, and it ended up being over an hour long.
I can tell. Yeah, that's not surprising to me.
Yeah. That's I think that's my message. If you're in a job, value your own happiness at work. If you run a company, if you're a manager somewhere, value your employees' happiness and do something about it. Make sure that they're happy at work. That's, happiness matters. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you so much. That matters to me, and I know it matters to a lot of people, and it's important to question the status quo and don't take it as it is, because it's been like that for 150 plus years. But yes, and thank you for being a great example of that. Thank you for your work all around the world. I'm going to put the links to your books, to your YouTube channel, and your work and your website anyways. So thanks for being with us and spending the time, Alex. It was great to catch up with you, with my audience listening. So thank you so much, really.
My absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks.